Salam TAI-TB. Jumpa lagi di One Wealth Outlook, market update minggu keempat Juni 2021. Saya Ahmad Enver, bersama rekan kami, Bapak Terence Wu selaku FX Strategist dari OCBC Group, siap memberikan informasi dan analisa pasar terkini, global, dan domestik untuk membantu Anda memilih strategi investasi terbaik. Hi Terence, good morning and thank you so much for joining us today on One Wealth Outlook.
Yeah, good morning, Enver, and greetings to our friends and clients in Indonesia.
Let's start with your reaction first on the dollar movement following the FOMC meeting last week. Beginning of this month, the dollar index just hovered below the 90 level. However, it has now surged to the 92 level, inching closer to its highest level year to date at 93.4. What does this mean to you?
Yes, if you look at how the dollar has moved from the start of this year to the period just before the June FOMC, it has essentially been flat, and it has been at basically static at 90 for 1 month between May and June. This to us shows a lot of indecision and uncertainty within the market when it comes to broad dollar directionality. During this period, we have been very much pro-dollar, and basically for us, this is based off an idea that the US macro performance will be stronger than China, will be stronger than Europe, and the fact that disregarding the most recent policy decisions by the Fed, by the ECB, the fact remains that the balance sheet expansion at the Fed is actually slower than at the ECB. So for us, this June FOMC is really a little bit of a game changer, right? It allows the market to switch away from this indecision, this uncertainty, to perhaps embracing more of the pro-dollar views that we already had before the FOMC itself. Now, but what really are the three key developments in the FOMC that we sort of caught on? Number one, it is very clear to us now that the Federal Reserve is ready to talk about tapering its monetary support. Number two, the dot plots are now clearly hawkish, showing 2 full rate hikes by the end of 2023. And the fact that this hawkish shift in terms of the dot plot actually comes together with only a 0.1 increase in terms of their inflation forecasts in 2022 and 2023. Right? This suggests to us that there is some sense that the Fed is becoming more reactive to inflation. Right? In technical terms, we say that the Fed's reaction function has probably turned more hawkish. So I think overall, these developments to us is very dollar supportive, especially against the lower yielding G10 currencies like your euro, like your yen. Cyclicals like Asian currencies, like Aussie, like Kiwi, they may be more resilient on the back of global growth prospects. And right now, we are a little bit undecided whether we will see a clear sort of divergence between the lower yielding reserve currencies like euro and yen against the cyclicals, or we will see a more broad-based kind of dollar strength that sort of lifts the entire G10 dollar space. So this is something that we will be keeping a close watch for in the coming few weeks or so.
It is interesting that you mentioned about US macro performance earlier, because investors' focus now is clearly on economic recovery. But with that, it also comes with the inflation narratives. With the latest US inflation print surge to the 5% level on May, well above the Fed's 2% target, where do you see the US dollar will move within the next 1 year, especially in relation to the Fed's fund rate and the US Treasury movement?
So if you look at inflation indices in the US, there is the CPI and there is the PCE inflation. So there are two different indices here. What you mentioned just now was the CPI inflation, and for the Fed, they are more concerned about the PCE inflation. And for PCE inflation, the headline and core numbers, the latest ones in April, they are at 3.6 and 3.06, right? Now, regardless of which inflation index that we are talking about right now, the key idea here is that the Fed is undergoing this period called average inflation targeting, meaning to say they are allowing inflation to run higher and run hotter than their 2% target for a certain period of time, right? This is to make up for the previous years when it has been running below 2% for a long time. The question here is, how long will they allow inflation to run hot for? I think what we have seen in the latest round of FOMC and the idea that the Fed reaction function is turning more hawkish, we get the sense that Fed is probably not willing to let inflation run hotter for a period that is as long as what the market is expecting. So in that sense, the market seems to be taken a little bit surprised by the latest FOMC. So on net, the Fed rate hike expectations, as seen from the Fed funds futures, as seen from the euro dollar futures, are now more sustainably priced in, right? And this is the significant difference compared to pre-FOMC. So into the second half of 2021, we continue to see dollar strength as a base case for us. Now, regarding the US Treasury yields, especially the 10-year yield, for example, some may be pointing to the flattening US Treasury curve post the FOMC decision as a potential dollar negative, right? So I just like to raise a few points here. Now, it is indeed true that the US Treasury curve has flattened post FOMC, but there are a lot of short-term factors at work here. For example, positioning, short covering, technical issues. And to us, these are not fundamental, these are more once-off. So we do expect these to retrace in time. The other thing is that the near-term correlation between the broad dollar and US Treasury yields, back-end US Treasury yields, have in fact broken down over the course of the past 2 months or so. There is still a good correlation between the US Treasury yields and dollar yen, but that is the only major pair that still retains a good correlation. So in that sense, we may see the dollar yen becoming a laggard in terms of dollar strength going forward, but nevertheless, I don't think it would sustainably change our view that the dollar is perhaps going to head northwards in the second half of this year.
Okay. Other than the US dollar, what is your views on other major currencies trade, say within the G10 space, going into the year end? Which currencies do you expect to be the winners or losers in the current global recovery narratives?
If you look at the 6 months to 12-month kind of time horizon, basically we are seeing the different growth trajectories in the different economies filtering into different stances when it comes to their respective central banks, right? And eventually, the differences in terms of the central bank stance will flow through to the FX movements. So in the next few months, we are keeping a very, very close watch on the different central banks. There are a key sort of event coming out in the Jackson Hole meeting in August. So that is a key event risk that we are watching out for, and also the central bank policy meetings in July itself. Now, if you ask me which currencies are going to outperform, I think if we flow back to looking at which central bank is most hawkish at this point in time, right? Fed, of course, has now moved into a position as one of the more hawkish bunch of major central banks. Before the Fed, we have had the Bank of Canada, we have had the Reserve Bank of New Zealand becoming more hawkish. Now, The ones that are still very much behind the pack, they are still very dovish, are the likes of the ECB, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of Japan, right? The two central banks that are sort of in the fence, sitting on the fence right now, is your Reserve Bank of Australia and your Bank of England, right? So if we take this picture and we extrapolate into the FX space, we do expect the Canadian dollar, the Kiwi dollar, together with the US dollar to be the main candidates for outperformance within the G10 space. Likewise, we expect Euro to underperform, the Yen to underperform, and what is still sort of up in the air is the Australian dollar and the British pound, right? So we still need to wait and see for more clarity in terms of the RBA and the Bank of England in terms of their policy stances going forward.
Okay. On Chinese yuan, what can we expect and what will be the key drivers?
For the Chinese yuan, there has been some concerns over the pace of the Chinese recovery earlier this year. And indeed, the post-COVID recovery in China is very much export-led. And as the other economies reopen and the other economies' export sectors start to get fired up again, it is natural that the Chinese export sector will start to slow down, right? Nevertheless, the underlying pace of recovery is still unchanged. It is just relatively a little bit slower as the other economies start to catch up, right? So the renminbi positive, the yuan positive drivers, I guess, has faded slightly, but they are still very much intact, right? Apart from growth-related arguments, we have yield differentials, right? Yield differential arguments, and at its peak, the Chinese government bond yields, the 10-year Chinese government bond yields, have a yield differential of about 2.6% over the US Treasury yields. Right now, we are at about 1.6, 1.5%. It has faded from the extremes, but it is still very much positive. So overall, we are still expecting some renminbi positives into yuan positives going into the year end. We have our year end forecast at about 6.3. It's just that right now we are running into a little bit of issues, all right, a little bit of barriers when it comes to continued renminbi appreciation, right? Near term, we see that the PBOC is not going to allow one-way appreciation of the renminbi. So in that sense, they will have to do their part to slow down the appreciation process of the renminbi. The second thing, of course, is the dollar resurgence that we are seeing at this point in time. So overall, on net, there is some near-term potential for the dollar CNY and the dollar CNH to consolidate higher in the near term, but by the year end, we are still looking for a year end forecast of around 6.3 on the dollar CNY at this point in time.
We are now approaching our last question, and I want to touch a little bit on the current hot topic of cryptocurrencies, which gained massive popularity of late. What is your take on how have cryptocurrencies affect investors' investment behavior, especially in FX space, if any, and whether or not you see this will continue to be the key story for this year?
I think when it comes to the cryptocurrency space, we need to differentiate between two very different set of drivers. Number one, the first set of driver is the inherent attributes of the cryptocurrency itself, right? So this is rooted in the nature of the blockchain technology that supports the cryptocurrency, right? And it affects the inherent users, right? The natural demand for the particular cryptocurrency in new users such as decentralized finance and other new users that we are looking at right now, right? The second set of drivers would be the broader market dynamics, right? And with cryptocurrency becoming an increasingly accepted asset class, the second set of drivers regarding the broader market dynamics will also come to play more strongly. Of course, there is a third set of drivers which I don't like to talk very much of, is really Elon Musk and the other sort of Elon Musk and the other tweets that come out from the different players within that field, right? So if you look at the first set of drivers, the inherent attributes of each cryptocurrency, if you track that closely, I just give an example. There is a Taproot upgrade coming for Bitcoin that should make the Bitcoin's underlying blockchain technology more flexible towards new applications and new users. Fundamentally, that allows that expands the use cases for Bitcoin, and that should support underlying demand. But my concern here is you really need to have very detailed technical knowledge in this specific area to understand the changes in this space when it comes to the inherent attributes of each cryptocurrency. The second thing, of course, is that with crypto being increasingly accepted, having broader investor base, the more regular market dynamics are coming into play as well. If you look at how the FOMC has flowed through, the broader market is trying to filter in more hawkish expectations, and that has taken a hit on risk assets. And if anything, cryptocurrency perhaps moves similarly to equities in the sense that it is an asset class that goes higher when there is a broad risk-on environment. And we are starting to see this risk-on environment start to taper slightly. And going forward, not unlike US equities, we may actually see cryptocurrencies being under pressure from broader market dynamics. Now, the underlying question is between these two very, very different set of drivers, which is going to dominate, right? And I stress for investors in cryptocurrency, time horizon is very, very important. If you have a shorter time horizon, then the market dynamics is going to be important. The regular market dynamics is going to be important. But if you have, or if you are willing to hold on for the long term, and long term we are talking about 1 year, 2 years, or even 5, then the inherent attributes of each cryptocurrency and its expanding users may actually filter through. So overall, it really depends on what kind of time horizon the investor has. And I really do recommend that cryptocurrency investors should have a longer term time horizon to weather the volatility. And so overall, I think, yes, it's going to be a key issue going forward. Even if it's not in the near term, sometime down the road, we will start to hear about cryptocurrencies again. And this is not a topic that will go out of fashion anytime soon, Enver.
That will conclude our session today, Terence. Thank you so much again for joining us on One Wealth Outlook. We can't wait to see you in our many more episodes to come.
Yes, same here. Thank you, Enver. Thank you very much for having me here in this session. Thank you.
Sekian informasi dan analisis kali ini bersama Bapak Terence Wu selaku FX Strategist dari OCBC Group. Untuk mengikuti update pasar terkini, Anda dapat mengakses weekly market journal kami melalui link di bawah ini. Dan jangan lupa untuk memfollow kami dengan mengklik tombol subscribe. Saya Ahmad Enver, nantikan One Wealth Outlook berikutnya di minggu depan. Salam dari ITB.